This episode of the XtremeAg Show is presented by Concept AgriTek.
Cowboy is the game changer, getting it in through the leaves and into the plant circulatory system. That's why this product is so effective at delivering both calcium and boron to plants at critical times when they need it the most.
In farming, planting season is always a race against the clock. As the weather starts to take a turn for the worse, Temple Rhodes worries that his planting window is shrinking.
But we're a little bit worried. We got about an inch and 2/10 of rain here a couple of days ago, but they're talking about getting really cool this weekend into the 40s, and then we're supposed to get maybe 2 inches of rain. So we'll stop planting ahead of a cold, wet rain 36 hours prior. It's just not worth that risk. Our trials are so big and our labs are so big for XtremeAg. You know, when we do a 40-acre lab, it's a 40-acre lab next to a 40-acre our grower standard practice, like what we actually use. That one trial, basically, it'll eat up 80 acres. It wouldn't be fair to our partners to not try to do it perfectly right the first time. These are my last 2 irrigated farms that we're going to be working on. It's the highest production soil that we've got. These farms actually have majority of all my labs and my trials. But this ground actually got kind of messed up last year. It's a little bit rough, so we wanted to get all that residue worked back into the soil profile. This farm's been strip tilled anhydrous from XtremeAg, and then after we get done strip tilling, we hit it with a field cultivator and hit it one time and bust it all apart. You know, get back some of the nutrients that we used last year, try to get them back into the soil, get them back into these new plants.
Little Temple's out in the field running the cultivator, a crucial step prior to planting. Everything's going great, until...
So I was in the middle of working ground with our field cultivator, and one of the bolts from the rolling basket came loose, and once it came loose, it broke right off, and the rolling basket fell off. I just felt like, oh crap, I just messed up. Man, Dad is gonna be pissed.
I think he hit something, but I don't know whether he did or not. Got to order parts as usual, and who knows how long we're gonna have to wait for it. So what I'll probably do is take it back to the shop. I'll manufacture a part and make it so we can get going tomorrow. But for today, he's gonna run like we are, and we're gonna be one less rolling basket. It's not gonna be that big of a deal because we're working it up behind him anyway and running the packer over it anyway, so we'll get by without it. You know, it's just all part of it. Just another day in paradise.
Well, he wasn't as mad as I thought he would be.
Placing the seed exactly where you want it is a key first step to a successful crop.
See, we talk about, you know, corn having the right spacing all the time, and nobody wants to talk about soybeans having the right spacing. See, look at that, I've just uncovered a double. So obviously my vacuum pressure is a little bit too high, but you want to have them spaced exactly the same, and now I'm going to tell you why. So with soybeans, you know, if you have them too close like this, right? Those 2 plants right there are going to be just a thin line bean, and then this one right here is going to be a bushy bean. And then these 2 are going to be, you know, mid-bushy. That's what I want them like. But the problem is they're all going to end up different stages throughout the crop. If I'm trying to trigger some type of response of these plants, better that we can space them, the better we're going to have some success out of, you know, a micronutrient pack, a PGR, all these different things that we're putting on, because, you know, micronutrient packs a lot of times don't work because they're not put on at the right stage. Just like dropping corn, you want to singulate them the best that you can, because singulation plays a big toll, and it starts right here. So I'm going to try to be proactive, not reactive. That's our biggest problem, you know. I've always been reactive, and anytime that you're being reactive, you already lost money. If you're proactive and you can get ahead of that, you can stand to hedge that bet a little bit better. You know, it's kind of a little bit of an insurance program for us. Think about everything that we're doing at XtremeAg with all the different testing and all the trials. I need to be able to collect that data. as we're harvesting, it automatically collects all that data and backs it all up. I'll know when I get done harvesting it, I can back that rate up and I can lay those sheets over each other. So our ROI is immediate, and we're trying to take all the guessing out. So there is a ton of money hidden in the data. You just got to be willing to take a minute and collect it.
Amino Grow is an exciting new product put out by Concept AgriTek. What we've seen is an increase in fruiting sites as well as branching, and this has equated to yield.
Spot less. Introducing the cleanup for tar spot, gray leaf spot, southern rust, and more. Novel next generation Adastrio fungicide from FMC broadens your spectrum and strengthens your residual foliar disease control. Protect your cornfields with a proprietary combination of 3 modes of action. Visit your FMC retailer or adastrio.ag.fmc.com to clean up this season.
Introducing Demco's newest dual auger grain cart design. Now equipped with the front folding auger and available in right side or left side unload options. Featuring Demco's corner auger design for optimal visibility. With a 22-inch vertical auger, unload at speeds of 600 bushels per minute. Demco. Outpace harvest time every time.
Some farmers I know swear by a name. Say they'd never operate anything else. Well, here are a few names for my Fendt 900 tractor. Fuel Saver, Time Maximizer, Game Changer. I like those names.
BioHealth is a product by Concept AgriTek made up of a consortium of beneficial biology that actually colonize the plant and boost the plant's immune system from the inside.
They say that when something looks simple, the devil is in the details. That's a truth Kevin Matthews lives by. He knows the stakes are high every year.
Today you're going to be seeing us trying to figure out how to win the National Corn Yield Championship. We still hold the record here in North Carolina for the NCGA, and we hope we can continue that on irrigated ground. We have several different farms that is good soils and good irrigation, and we always try to have it the best we can do. So we're paying attention to detail. We did our pre-inspection this morning, and we found this injection tip had a piece of stainless steel in it, a little flake in it. So that flake actually had that injection tip stopped up where it would not perform properly. Every single seed's got to be precisely placed, and we're putting our fertilizer precisely as well, and all of our ingredients that we use to reduce the amount of fertilizer that we need. So we're actually mixing our plant food here today. It's very critical that we get the correct amount out. Some of this stuff we're putting 2.8 to 3.2 ounces per acre. So that's 3.2 ounces across 43,560 square foot. And it's got to be exactly right. So we're putting all these ingredients in here, and we got this mix tank, and we will have a 100-acre fill up here. So it's 100 acres worth of product. So there's 400 gallons of product in there with our fertilizer and the ingredients we put in. And it's got to be precise. And there's nothing irritates me no more than somebody walks up and they want to say, hey, help me with this right here. And I'm sitting there trying to measure and figure and make sure I do everything right. And I got the pump sitting there running, 80 gallons a minute pumping in that tank, and I'm wanting to stop it at exactly 400 gallons. I ain't got time for you. Stay away from me. I mean, I don't answer my phone when I'm doing this. I'll call you back. I don't respond to a text when I'm doing this. But that's the 400 mark right there. 100 acres, so our seed corn is considered a unit, and when you're buying seed, you sell it in bushels, but a unit is 50 pounds.
But now it's actually, they go by kernel count, so it's 80,000 kernels equals 1 unit. So you got to know how much that unit weighs. Some kernels will only weigh 40 pounds, and some will weigh 60 pounds, depending on the size of the seed and the density of the kernel. So I wanted to make sure I had enough at the population I was planting at to put 34 to 36,000 seed per acre out there. And that gives me the math. I take that seed, multiply it times the acres, and then divide it by 80,000, convert it back down into units. And then I know it's 50 pounds per unit in this variety that we're planting today. And then that tells me I need them to put 400 pounds of side in, 800 pounds of seed, I'm good to roll.
Just imagine being the ground crew, the fuel crew, loading the bags. And with this, it's like, you know, you gotta make sure there's fuel in it, you gotta make sure it's loaded up, ready to go, you gotta make sure he has snacks, and getting the pilot ready to go. That's Kevin, he's ready to take off right now. My relationship with Dad is pretty special, it's unique. I mean, I don't feel like many females have that kind of relationship with their dad like we do. We can talk about anything together. There's not really many topics off limits between us. Now, there's days we get pretty ill at each other. When you're working together every day, it's hard. You come home, you're hot, it's 100 degrees outside, it feels like, and everything's went wrong. You're still together all day long, then you're gonna go eat supper with the family afterward. You gotta know when to put that divide between work and family at home.
So we're planting a National Corn Growers Association. We have a yield contest amongst all of us farmers across the whole United States, trying to see who can grow the most bushels per acre. If we can make this pay, these applications that we're doing in this, what we call high yield environment, then we'll consider taking it across the other acres on the farm. So it's really just a big test plot when you get down to it. And if anything can go wrong, it typically goes wrong when you're planting or harvesting one of these yield contest plots. But at the end of the day, we just got to beat all the other guys in XtremeAg, and we've done good.
Adding Raytheon into your in-fur application, or even an over-the-top application, ground V3, V4, can do wonders in helping that plant navigate tough soil conditions as far as nutrient tie-up is concerned.
Control the toughest weeds with overlapping residuals. Lock in the longest-lasting control for your soybean fields. Authority brand herbicides such as Authority Edge herbicide and Authority Supreme herbicide combine the industry's most effective Group 14 and 15 active ingredients for a clean start and long-lasting residual control. Following up 14 to 28 days later with a post-application of Anthem Max herbicide through V6 establishes a heavy-duty, economical, overlapping residual program.
Claims are good and all, but I'm more interested in results. My Fendt Momentum planter delivers them. The only planter with automatic tire pressure adjustments, weight transfer across its frame, and inline center tandem wheels that eliminate pinch rows. It's just another way I know Fendt's got my bottom line top of mind.
Sweet Success has been in the product lineup of Concept AgriTek for a while. We've seen it do a lot of things that you wouldn't think a blackstrap molasses product would do. Anytime you can increase the bricks content of your plant, the more healthy it's going to be.
The sweaty, sun-soaked delta of southeast Arkansas, Matt Miles isn't just raising corn. He's wrestling with the sun itself, trying to outsmart it with a perfect early planting strategy.
People ask me a lot because I go beyond the borders of pushing the envelope, planting stuff early. I like it to be fairly warm when I plant, but I want to get that corn in the ground and get it growing and try to, bypass some of the heat that we have during pollination. Probably our biggest limiting factor in corn production is the nighttime heat, nighttime temperatures during pollination. And that can take 20 bushels off our crop, in just a matter of a few days during pollination. So, we're crunched. All of our equipment's being used, and we're just trying to get through planting corn and beans. We hadn't even thought about cotton, which has put us behind. So that's what this plot was, is to see how early is too early. This corn was planted February the 22nd, which is, most people are still got their coveralls on and wouldn't even consider planting anything in February. But this right here is a round, or 48 rows. The first 24 rows here, we didn't put any in-furrow on. We just cut the in-furrow off and just ran. That's just seed and the base fertility. We put it, in the field. The rest of the field was done with our in-furrow, which is about in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 an acre. You need 4 to 5 bushels to pay for that, to pay for that in-furrow. But we feel like we're picking up 10 to 15 bushels, with that in-furrow. So 50 days later, we couldn't see the difference in where we spent the money and where we didn't. And sometimes you can't until you put the combine in it. But I can start seeing a difference now between, this row and this row. If you look at the plants, that plant's a bigger, more robust plant. And this over here, still a good, decent looking plant, but it's not gonna be as tall. It's not quite as green. So we plant the corn February 22nd. Usually when we plant early, the first half of March, especially the first week of March, it takes probably 15 days to get the corn up, maybe sometimes 20 days to get the corn up. Struggle. We planted this on February 22nd, 9 days later it was up. And everybody's like, yes, man, we had perfect weather, got a good emergence, all the stand counts were good. And I'm thinking in my mind, it might have been better if it would have been 20 days coming up instead of 9, because that gave me 10 more days of the harsh weather that the crop would get through in the soil, not out of the soil. Got a huge cold spell. It was frosting every day for like 4 days. The last day of that cold spell, we got 9 hours below freezing and the temperatures got down to 27. Well, by the time we got that, this corn was probably V1. It was about this tall. Completely roasted it. I mean, it frosted every bit of it off. I had 2 green lines out there and they turned brown. And then from brown, the foliage disintegrated. Well, the thing about corn is the growing point's still under the ground. Now, if it got frosted today, then it would kill it. But at that point, when it's that young, it can frost on it, freeze on it, and the growing point's below the ground, it will come back. So all the corn came back. But what I got to noticing was, as we were doing our stand counts again, we were getting about 28,000. We planted 34,000. We was getting about 28,000. But about 8,000 of that 28,000, in my opinion, was runt plants. And when I talk about runt plants, I'm just gonna clip one off right here. I would consider this a runt, I would consider that a runt plant. So this plant's setting beside this plant, okay? Here's another one. There's 2 right here, there's another one. And I got to thinking, corn is one of those things when you've got a kind of a crappy stand and you've got time to do it and you're not too late, it's almost better to just kill it and start over. Because if not, and that's almost with any crop, if you got a sick crop, you're trying to baby it around, then you're gonna baby it the whole year. And I thought, okay, this is a prime time, let's just replant it. So that was the 3rd week of March. So now we've got opposite spectrums. We have what I'm considering almost a late field of corn where I replanted against the ultra early corn here. Does this pick up 15 bushel yield, 3 bushel yield? Does this out yield that? So time will only tell what's gonna happen. Again, if you're gonna try this, try it on a very limited amount of acres and try it on something that you can afford to lose. And that's one thing we do on our farm, is try new things that are probably out of the box, that probably won't make money, but you don't know if you don't try. And if we do it on a small amount of acres, it don't break the bank. Whatever research we're doing here, whatever data we get here, it will definitely be posted to the XtremeAg members, and people will be able to keep up with what we're doing, right or wrong.
Go long for season-long foliar disease protection that starts at plant. Active ingredient flutriafol moves through your corn plants as they grow for inside-out protection from roots to tassel. A single at-plant application provides comparable performance in corn yield protection to that of VTR1 foliar fungicides against diseases like gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, common rust, and more.
Some farmers I know swear by a name, say they'd never operate anything else. Well, here are a few names for my Fendt 900 tractor. Fuel Saver, Time Maximizer, Game Changer. I like those names.
Everyone knows that feeding a plant the right nutrients is key for a healthy crop. But have you ever thought about what to feed the soil? Kelly Garrett flips the script, focusing his attention on a different kind of nourishment.
A huge topic in our world today is our carbon footprint. Well, in farming, that's starting to be measured from your carbon index score, and the average carbon index score is 29.1 on Iowa farms. Our farm is a -2. And it's in no small part because of plant food. So we're out here today, we're custom applying plant food on a farm west of Dunlap. Plant food is a byproduct, a liquid byproduct out of the feed industry. Our operation has grown. We have about 60 employees. We have 50 trucks because we work for a liquid feed company that takes the byproduct from a soybean processor. They take that byproduct and they acidulate it and use about 20% of it to make liquid feed for hogs and poultry. There's tremendous fertility value in the liquid feed byproduct. In 400 gallons, there's about $170 worth of synthetic fertility value. We bring it home, we store it in lagoons, and then we apply it on our soils as well as other soils here in western Iowa. And there's kind of a secret to it. It's an amazing product. You know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, but also I hesitate to use the word organic, but it's nutrient available. When a nutrient has been through a plant once, it's 10 times more available to the next plant. So this byproduct is essentially a liquid soybean. We've documented a 40 bushel yield gain in corn, a 20 bushel yield gain in beans, and farmers a lot of time get a bad rap because they say they're raping the soil, which is not true. The soil in Iowa especially has great potential, and as growers, we are so far from it, it's humorous, okay? But what happens is we get out of balance from a chemistry perspective, and the nutrients in plant food, specifically the sulfur and the micronutrients and the carbon, help us balance the soil. So the nutrient availability along with the chemical balance or the chemistry balance that we can get, that's the secret sauce here. That's why it works so good in this ground. It really is a game changer up here in these soils. Because it's a byproduct, it's inexpensive. The farmers are able to purchase it for about 50 cents on the dollar. There's about 22 million gallons available from the supplier. We take it all and we spray it on 45 or 50,000 acres. From an environmental perspective or sustainable perspective, instead of using synthetic fertility, which in my opinion is not sustainable or environmental, we're going back to the soil with a liquid soybean. The amount of waste that we are taking out of the system is equal to a city of 200,000 people. Remember, before we came along, a large portion of the plant food was treated until it was considered to be appropriate and it was flushed down the stream. So we're taking all of that waste out of the system, we're applying it here. I don't know of anything that's more environmental that I could think of. Our carbon footprint is better or smaller than anyone you're ever going to come across. We are the very definition of sustainability here. So because of the weather and because of the wind and things like that, we're behind on spraying. And I told them to load the sprayer trailer all the way up to the gills and drive over there about 6 miles west and spray. And I was very confident it would be dry enough. So they did exactly what I said. Guys, Richie and Dion went over there to spray, and it was too wet. So they went to come home. Well, when I sent them, they went through on the gravel roads through the hills, which is fine. When they went to come home, they were going to go through town. And they were on the highway for about 2 miles. A DOT officer picked them up and weighed them. And we got a $6,500 ticket because they didn't spray anything. It was wet, so they came back with the trailer fully loaded, obviously, and which is my own fault. I just never dreamt that they'd be coming home full. So I have $6,500 less today.
We pull on the highway at 2 mile. I didn't even get up to speed. I was like, oh, there's the DOT. He turned around and I just pulled over at the cemetery.
I only want to pay like $6,000 of this, and I think you two should pay $500 because you two 300-pound guys are at least $500 of this ticket. So about 67 cents per pound should come out of you two.
I don't think so. I'm working on it.
Okay, I'm going to take this to Adam. Don't worry about it, okay?
It changes everything, so says Indiana corn grower Nathan Davis about innovative Xyway LFR fungicide from FMC. Xyway brand fungicides are the first and only at-plant corn fungicides to provide unprecedented season-long inside-out foliar disease protection.
Success isn't just about maintaining your operation, how you make out for the season, or how much you can get from each acre. It's about doing precisely what needs to be done to feed your crop and grow your legacy, all the way down to the last drop. AgroLiquid Precision Crop Nutrition. Apply less, expect more. Find a retailer at agroliquid.com.
Nitrogen, it's an essential part of the amino acid package. It's the building block of the proteins and enzymes in a plant. Really needed a lot in corn, really needed a lot in rice, cotton the same way. Actually, soybeans produce their own through nodulation.
So I can only make about 80, 85 bushel beans with the amount of nodules that it's going to make for itself. So at some point, I got to figure out a way that I can add to that.
If we can use micronutrients like moly, iron, copper, even one that nobody talks about, cobalt, they all help in that nitrogen processing. And once we start processing nitrogen efficiently, we don't need as much as we thought we did.
You've heard the saying, too much of a good thing. Well, that's kind of where you can be with any nutrient, but nitrogen is one of those that we're learning through our sustainability efforts that can be reduced. Nitrogen is pretty easy to leach, it's pretty easy to run off. So when you're farming in those really deep, sandy, beach-type soils, you put out nitrogen at the wrong time, get big, heavy rains on it, it's going in the ground, or it's running out the end. It is one of the most strategically managed nutrients that we use.
What you need to be careful is if you front load nitrogen on soybeans, you're going to get a giant leggy plant, super tall, and then it's going to end up making all this foliage. It's going to fall over, and it's going to not stack your nodes. Like your nodes will be this far apart. I want to stack them, an inch apart and stack all the way up it. Because if it's a high yield situation, those plants get heavy, they fall over and they break.
We need to process the nitrogen, make it do what it's supposed to do in that plant, and we use micronutrients that are key in the enzyme reactions of that nitrogen processing in the plant. So that's when somebody asks how can you tell, well, what we're learning is you can't. You got to use certain testing methods to find that out and then employ right products, help us alleviate the issues.
Now with nitrogen on soybeans, the problem is if you go out there and let's say you use chicken litter or you use some other form and you get too much nitrogen out there on soybeans, what you can do is, one, you can make the plant lazy and it's not going to nodulate at all. It's not going to put anything on there where it's going to make its own nitrogen because you just made the plant way too lazy. So how to do that is if you're going to put some down, you can strip till it and you can strip till it down real deep, so by the time that it gets to it, it's in the reproductive stage, and that's when you're going to want your nitrogen anyway.
We figured out what we think the best thing to do is spoon feed it. We don't go eat all of our food at breakfast. If that works for us, that should work for plants too, so we spoon feed. We do that with our other nutrients too, but nitrogen is probably one of the biggest ones that we do that with and we get the most benefit from.
But keep in mind, you got to figure out a way that you can feed that into the plant closer to the reproductive stages, so when you're reproductive, you're making pods, beans, blossoms, all that. In vegetative, you're just making vegetation and biomass. We don't sell biomass, we sell the seed. That's how we got to figure it out.
Next week on the XtremeAg Show.
So when the calf's born, after the first, say, couple hours, if it hasn't sucked, it's not gonna. So if you just leave it, it just won't eat, and it'll just starve to death.
That's not a good sign.